Welcome to Helping Organisations Thrive. Today I have the great pleasure of Sarah Alexander. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, good to see you. And I'm just going to tell the audience a little bit about you and explain who you are and why you're on this podcast. So you're the Managing Director of Brownlee Accountants, who are a forward-thinking accounting, tax and financial services group that combines expertise, new ideas, and a commitment to keeping promises. I like that at the end, keeping promises. It's very good to have that in business. You are obviously a qualified accountant yourself. You trained in Manchester and you spent some time working in Gibraltar, which is interesting.
I did.
Before you came back to the UK. So interesting stuff there. And so first thing I always ask everybody who comes on my podcast, just purely because I'm really nosy, is what do you love about what you do?
It's all about the people, I think. What we do as accountants. One of my colleagues described being an accountant as a bit like being a counsellor. You spend lots of time talking to people, listening to their issues and challenges within the organisation, obviously the people that work for you, but also our clients come to us when they've got a challenge, an issue, a problem. And we spend lots of time talking to them, getting to know their businesses and helping them solve those issues, which is incredibly rewarding. And every day is different because of that nature. I can't predict day to day. I try and plan my day. And it sometimes goes to plan, but often, just lots of things crop up and it keeps you on your toes, and it makes for a very interesting working life.
Excellent. It's interesting that you said it's people, and not that I want to put accountants into boxes, but I'm probably going to put you in a box right now. You always think it's about the numbers and the pounds and spreadsheets and everything else, and it's actually.
I love those too. Yeah.
But people's the thing you like, isn't it? It's interesting because it is people that are involved in the businesses you deal with.
Yeah, I think it starts with numbers. A lot of people go into accountancy having enjoyed doing maths at school and things. And for me, that was part of the reason. But it evolves into something quite different. And then you realise, sort of a few years in, that actually the rewarding bit about this is what do the numbers tell you? What's the story of the accounts? What does that tell me when I read a set of accounts? I'm trying to understand what those are telling me in relation to that business. And so many people, clients, will just say, I don't understand the balance sheet, I don't understand the profit and loss account. And what our job is to make those numbers make sense to those clients. And you can see usually in the numbers if there are any challenges, problems, things don't make sense. So yes, there's a lot of numbers, but actually it's the people that's the really rewarding bit.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. And it's, have you always wanted to be in that world of accountancy?
I did. I grew up in Manchester. I did my A-levels and hated sixth form college, so didn't want to go to university, but said I would go in a year, take a year out and see what happens, and got a job as an AAT trainee in a very, very small firm in Stockport, and never looked back. Did 2 years AAT, did the ACCA, just loved it, really enjoyed the study. I didn't want to stop studying, but didn't feel that university was the right route, and just had met some great people, again, worked with great organs. It's only a very small team, but really great people, really supportive. And then an opportunity came post that, went off to Gibraltar, which was a great experience, and came up and found myself on the south coast and joined Brownlee in 2003. And been a partner there since 2004, so it's quite a long time, 17 years being a partner.
Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. So we've had probably an overused word, an unprecedented year in this, 18 months is coming up now. And I'm sure that's been quite challenging for you, obviously personally, but also as a business. I'd like to understand, has your leadership changed in the last year in response to that, or it might not have done? I was wondering how that's been any different or not.
Oh, it's changed massively, I think. Like I said, I've been a partner, so in a leadership role of some sort, even though quite junior, for 17 years. The first don't know, 7 or 8 years, I had a senior partner who was the leader of the business, and I've been the managing director of the business for 6 or 7 years. And I think you're not, as an accountant in particular, we're taught how to do accounts and how to do tax, but we're not really trained at all about how you run a business and how you manage people and leadership, and all of that is something that happens. Or I go on various courses and get support and things like that. And it felt for me, when lockdown was announced, we had a couple of weeks before, we could see that it was likely, and there was lots of panic about getting everybody to work from home. But it was great. We've been paperless for a number of years, so it wasn't, that in itself wasn't a particular problem. The issue was making sure people had the right kit and the right connections and things. But in terms of the work we did, that wasn't an issue. The biggest challenge, though, was just the massive uncertainty surrounded everything. And it felt that I'd been training the last 17 years as being a partner as to properly lead this business now through what was just unprecedented, like, as you say, most overused, but it absolutely was. And the main focus for me was communication. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what we were faced. The first thing we did was get everybody settled in at home. Did a risk assessment of all of our clients. We're very fortunate in the accountancy profession. In a lot of our income is recurring fee. But we wanted to assess where our risk was, and we had lots of clients in retail and hospitality, events and all that. So we had to think about it from the point of view of the effect on our business, but also be in a position to support them through what was happening. And yeah, it was trying to, I felt that everybody was just looking around going, what we're doing, and it was up to me to be that steadying force. And tell people what we were doing. And initially we were doing a Teams call 3 times a week, 12 o'clock on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday, a SMA check-in about what was happening. And that was very well received. Lots of questions coming through about what we were doing. And I was just as honest as I could possibly have been, and said, this is where we are, this is what we're reading we need to be doing in terms of the working from home and all of this, and was just wanted to be visible, vocal, but in a not dictating, but just being, let's talk, this is how we see things, what do you think? And that over time, 3 days a week was too much eventually, and it settled down, but I still do it. Friday, 12 o'clock, I do a weekly check-in, and if I'm not in, if I'm working, I do it. So I never, if I've got an annual leave day, then I'll ask somebody else to do it for me. And we cover all kinds of different things. And I think that's the biggest learning thing for me throughout that time, was just being visible, approachable, and telling people what was going on.
So obviously, that weekly check-in now has become a normal thing for you as a business.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Interesting, isn't it? And you mentioned sort of communication and visibility, and it's interesting. A lot of, even though at times perhaps you felt you didn't know what was going on yourself, and how did you feel that in those situations where you didn't know sometimes what to say, how to say it, because it was unfolding almost on a day-by-day basis? How did that make you feel?
Tense, I guess. But needed, my focus was the business, obviously, wanting to come out of it in a strong position for the business. I thought a lot about what the staff must be feeling. I asked them any questions, let me know any concerns, and didn't really get a huge amount of feedback. But what I thought was, if it was me in their position, I'd be worried about my job. That's fundamentally what I'm worried about. So I spent quite a lot of time telling them about the financial position of the business, which I'd never really done before. And, sort of said, the bank balance is this, and it's very strong, and we're not carrying any debt, and, debtors are being paid, blah, blah, blah. And communicated what sort of thought processes were going on in my mind. We furloughed a couple of people. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. If I could go back, there was no need to furlough. It was we didn't quite know what was going to happen, and we just felt actually we just needed to keep the finances really tight. So it wasn't middle of the summer for accountants. We're busy, but it's the end of the year when things get really, really tight. So we said, well, actually, let's furlough some people, mainly admin support type staff, but also a couple of people in tax and in the account side. And that was a bit reactionary, I think. And we'd read that some of the bigger firms had done that. So if they're doing it, then we must do it, mustn't we? But quite quickly we said, no, actually, the work is still there. The clients need us. We need to be able to respond to that. So by explaining to people, so I got interesting feedback when I talked about the finance side. I got some people, a comment that was fed back to me was, we don't need to know that. That's nothing to do with us as your employees. That's your business. And really? I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I then had some other feedback. We'd furloughed a couple of people. And then another bit of feedback was, well, if the cash balance is strong, why do you feel the need to furlough? And obviously we felt the need because we didn't know how long that cash was likely to last, and whether or not, we were carrying, we'd had a really good year. So as we went into lockdown, our debtors were the biggest they'd ever been. So you go, gosh, so that increased bad debt risk, which again proved to be absolutely fine in the end. Our clients we supported them and they supported us. They would ring and say, things are tough. Can I pay over a few months? And we were absolutely receptive to that. So, I tried to, whilst I was communicating, I was also I was listening and thinking about, well, what was the feedback I was getting, how it was being perceived. But yeah, it was hard because day to day you didn't know. And sometimes I felt that I'd said one thing on a Friday and I'd go to the following Friday and go, ignore that. That was, things have moved on already. It's a forever changing feast. So what we said then, I can't remember specific, maybe about coming back into the office at some point, and then local lockdown and tier 2 and all of that sort of stuff. And we had some people in tier 2, some in tier 3, and just that constant thing. And it just, I think the business, as well, it's come out well. The position we're in now, we feel really strong and positive. We've recruited during lockdown. I think we've got 3 new people that have joined us. Who, a couple of them have not even met face to face yet, which is quite extraordinary, really. But yeah, I think communication's got to be the most important thing, and being authentic with it. So honest as well. And if I am asked a question that I think, oh gosh, I'm not sure I want to answer that, I answer it as honestly as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think you did probably the great things a lot of leaders who sort of helped their businesses through this time was that visibility piece, which is people like to see somebody say, you might not entirely sure know where you're going or how you're doing it, but at least you were there at the helm and sort of guiding the ship in some shape or form, but also then you were communicating as best you can.
Yeah.
And it was certainly challenging. Besides the furlough aspect, is there anything that you look back and think, based on what you know now, that you would have done anything differently?
I don't think so. The furlough was the big one. I think that put pressure on the rest of the team because the work was still coming in. Touch wood, all of our clients have survived it. 1 or 2 have made the decision to stop retirement and whatever, but fundamentally, and we've replaced those because new businesses are propping up all of the time. So I think that, the only thing I would do differently would be not to have furloughed when we did. By June, everybody was back, so it was only 3 months, and it wasn't everybody for that 3-month period, but it did, I think, meant that we was pushing work further on in the year when it was really, really busy. But it was the right decision at that time. But I do think, with the benefit of hindsight, I would have done that differently.
And as your business, have you changed significantly how you interact not only with your staff but with your clients? And is that going to stay, do you think, as you go forward? Has it opened up sort of ways of working, which actually this is a really good way of working now?
I think there's going to be a balance. So I think Zoom and Teams and all of those things have been amazing. You know, if this had happened 10 years ago, I don't know where we would have all been. That technology was there, but it wasn't used and as accessible, I don't think, as perhaps it is now. So throughout my life at Lewis Brownlee, I've always felt that I'm never on top of everything. I can never get ahead. You know, we're very things crop up all of the time, and so going back to the comment I made about every day is different, and my diary's planned, but then at the end of the day I go, well, I didn't do any of that, I need to do that tomorrow. I think working from home, and when I go into the office now, I try and get in at least one day a week into Midhurst and Chichester. I really resent that journey. I live about half an hour away from both offices, and going into Chichester in particular can be quite problematic, sat in the car and I really resent that journey. When I get there though, I am so glad I've made the effort. I think that seeing people face to face is just totally different. The rapport is different. You just pick up more of the real story, I guess. And I think the same with clients. I think I had a call with a client just before this, 15-20 minutes, just wanted to quickly check in on something. So historically that would have been done over the phone. I think a face-to-face video call would have hated the thought of it 2 years ago. You know, we're all used to looking at ourselves, aren't we?
We are
used to that. And whilst it's not quite the same as face-to-face, it's certainly better on the phone. So I think they'll become a mix of, we're intending to be 50% in the office, 50% at home, working from home. And so I think that the virtual meetings will continue if it's one or two queries we need to wrap up. If it's a big strategy thing, then it's back into the office and face-to-face. Okay. But yeah, I think there are some businesses, haven't there, I think, that have said, right, everybody's working from home forever, we're going to sell the premises, we don't need it. I don't think that's the right answer. Certainly not for us. And we take a lot of graduates on and lots of trainees, and they need that interaction and that support. It's been quite difficult to support them remotely. You know, when you're in the office, you can see somebody staring at the screen, head in the hands, not understanding what they need to do. You can't see that when everybody's at home. So yeah, there'll be a balance. It's from the client facing side, what it's really encourage us to do. For years we've been saying we should be doing videos. We should be doing videos of the various things that we cover, you know, a video on making tax digital or whatever. And we've never ever embraced that, whereas in the last 6 months we really have. I
was going to say, because I know you've sort of during the lockdown periods, you were doing a live weekly webinar and everything else. And you not only took your visibility internally, you went externally as well.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant, and started to give some real advice and tips on all the government announcements on tax and whatever furlough schemes, all the different sort of loan schemes. I found personally really helpful as well.
Oh, brilliant. We were getting lots and lots of questions, and it was very confusing, and it still is. Just all the various different guidance. There's lots of grants that were available which weren't very well publicised. We were getting lots of questions about that. So in the same way that I was communicating, my focus last year was communicating to the staff, which I'm still doing, and that's just part of what we do now. It's part of our Lewis Brownlee DNA. So I was trying to replicate that to clients. So yeah, Friday morning, 9:30, got a bit dressed up and ready to present, and that was very well received. We've stopped doing it live because it was becoming slightly repetitive as it's coming to the end of the furlough schemes and all of that, and things have calmed down a great deal. But when the next thing we're expecting to be announced is the 5th self-employment income support scheme grant. So we'll probably do some live things on that. So as if something quite significant crops up that affects our clients, then historically we'd have blogged about it and we'd have sent an email, which we're still doing. But also with all of every email we send now, we send an email every Friday, and there's a video attached to that. And it's on a podcast and all of that. So just trying to reach clients in the way that suits them. Some people don't want to read an email. Some people might want to listen to it or watch the video. Trying to keep it, no more than sort of 10, 15 minutes maximum. But be helpful and supportive. And, these are the things. If you need any more help, then obviously come and let us know.
And has the pandemic created, I guess, a different strategic sort of direction for you as a business, and has it opened up opportunities that weren't there and perhaps you weren't aware of?
We're doing a lot more virtual FC type support, so virtual financial controller. So lots for our own clients, existing clients, lots of clients are coming to us and wanting just more support. The traditional accountant would prepare your accounts 6 months after the accounts date, tell you your tax bill, and then disappear again. I think it's what the pandemic has done has made more businesses, not all, everybody should, all businesses should really, really understand their finances. And, you don't need necessarily a sophisticated all singing, all dancing system. I've got one client who does it all in a little book, and that we do is the management accounts using Xero, and his figure's always about what mine is. So, slightly old school, but it works for him. But yeah, that accountant looking back retrospectively, I think is just so old fashioned, and clients need to know where they are now and where they're going. So we've always done management accounts and we've always done cash flow planning and forecasts, but that's where we've done so much more of it in the last 18 months, because it's the recovery now, isn't it? We've had 18 months of, for some businesses, almost no trading. The grants that businesses got for some businesses have been phenomenal. One or two interesting ones, looking at set of accounts yesterday, they've not paid tax for a couple of years, and this year they are paying tax because they were entitled to some of the rates grants. But then the bounce back loans, lots of people have taken on loans to help the recovery. And when they were taking on those loans, we would say to them, right, your 50 grand bounce back loan, repayment's about £900 a month. Pre-pandemic, could you afford to repay £900 a month for a bank loan? And for some, yeah, of course I can, it's fine. But for others, well, I just need to get through this, and I'll worry about that then. Well, you can't wait to worry about it later on. You need to be worrying about it now because you're committing to that. So so much more focused on the advisory, the planning, the looking forward, which is what accountants are really good at and what we should be doing for our clients. Yes, we do the compliance and the historic stuff, but actually the value comes in this support going forward.
So would you say, and I say this sort of in the right sense, has the pandemic been a good thing for your business in terms of new things, new ways of working, pushing you in a place of getting more visibility internally, externally? I mean, because I've seen a lot of businesses and I've talked to a lot of CEOs, and actually although they didn't want it, but it actually created massive amounts of opportunities and ways of working that they would never even thought of doing. And actually it's been a good thing. I say that, I know it's not a very good thing, the pandemic.
Yeah, really, I'm not sure. I understand what you mean. Nobody's ever going to say, oh, coronavirus was a good thing. But I think what it did do is it made you analyse perhaps the way you operate, the way the business functions, and challenge. Well, we've always done it that way. Well, why? Because we don't. Our office. We've got a beautiful barn where we work from on the road to Rittering in Chichester. We haven't got enough car parking for everybody to be in the office, and that's always been a real challenge for us. Whereas now I'm saying, well, it doesn't matter because everybody's going to be work from home 50% of the time. Yeah. Whereas we had this rota and it was all a big drama, and well, why? We just don't need the car parking. We can work differently. So I think there has been some real close scrutiny on businesses. And what's been really interesting is people have furloughed staff and managed to maintain their income. So those people that haven't been working, now for some, they just maintain things, and just about. And I've got one or two clients where furloughed staff, and then the director, the owner manager, has worked ridiculous hours to maintain that level of income. So, you know, so that's not sustainable. Those people will come back, and the business should thrive and move forward.
Yeah.
But I think there are some that will look at the structure, the staffing, the things that they're doing, and say, well, is this the right position to be in for us? So yes, it has been an eye-opener, an opportunity to review processes. We've done that, and a lot of our clients will have done that as well.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people who have like a service, like clients like yourself. You know, they used to spend days traveling to them, and then now they spend a call on a Zoom, you know, for an hour or so instead of spending half a day out. Not that I agree, the in-person is really good, but actually there's some efficiency. And likewise, myself, I used to do a lot in-person coaching, and now that's online. People are very comfortable with it. It's normal. Obviously, I do in-person. I quite like in-person, and I prefer it, but I go where with the clients.
It's a rapport piece, I think. I'm not sure you can build as much rapport. I don't know. Time will tell, I guess. But I think a mix of the two would be the way to structure it going forward, I think.
Yeah, I think you get to look in people's houses and what's going on behind them, and interesting either pictures or books or all sorts of stuff you can see and get nosy with. Just before we finish, what's your advice, whether it's to yourself as a business or to other businesses, as we say look to recover, in terms of what will be your focus as a business right now, and how you're going to sort of continue this sort of way of working and trying to get out of the pandemic?
Gosh, for me now, I think that in terms of when I'm talking to my staff at the moment, the main thing we're talking about is the return to the office and what the new normal is going to be. And it's getting that right balance that people are comfortable with. And because we are essentially a training organisation, like most places are, the right support for those staff that are working from home that are new, the trainees. I think it's interesting for accountants, actually, because we've got, in 2 years' time, there'll be the final push, or the big push, for self-assessment to be making tax digital for self-assessment. So everything's got to be digital. So at the moment, that's more of our focus. Getting our smaller clients. We've got sort of two aspects to our firm, really. We've got the small businesses that are sort of compliance service once a year. They've got a lot of work to be done. And I think it's going to be easier for us to support those clients because of the remote technology that we've now got, whereas trying to get into the office to train them 2 or 3 years ago just wouldn't be right. But then I guess it's what we've really learned in the last 18 months is that what I've just been talking about, that advisory piece, and being, not the accountant that just simply files your accounts for you each year, but also giving you the advice, supporting you in your business decisions, and helping you understand what's the story of your accounts business, and how best to take that forward.
That's brilliant. And just before we finish, how can people, if they want to connect with you personally, but also get in touch with your firm, how's the best way to do that?
Well, we're all on LinkedIn. We're quite active on LinkedIn. The website, there is a contact us, and you can email us straight from the website or just call the office. One of the big things that we made sure we could do when we all worked from home was that the calls could get not diverted. They come in by the switchboard, and everybody is contactable at home. So yeah, the usual channels, really. Brilliant.
Well, thank you for your time today and your sort of lessons from your last 18 months, which I'm sure has been pretty tough, but you're still smiling, and so we made it. That's good. I say thank you for your time today, Sarah. I appreciate that.
Thank you too. It's nice to see you.